All right, I'm going to bring on our next speaker. This is our keynote speaker, Chris Vinson. Give me 1 second. Chris, how are you?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you.
I got the sun on me. It looks like I'm a dang angel, and I'm not an angel, but I got the head on. I'm trying to get myself out of it.
Yeah, you got that.
I'm gonna have to find the spot. I think it's right here.
Yep, you're almost there. I see it. There you go. Well, man, welcome. I appreciate you joining us as always. You are an outstanding leader in this industry, and I'm always thrilled to get to sit down and chat with you.
Yeah.
And excited to hear what you got to say.
Cool. I got a hard stop at 11, so we're gonna whip this out, and I'll put you right back on time. Is that good?
Sounds good to me.
Well, guys, welcome to 2025. I think there's a couple things I really want to drive home to you today as you're listening to this. And maybe I'm going to sound a little bit different than what you've heard. Like a lot of my customers right now, we're talking about mindset, we're talking about goals, we're talking about planning, we're talking about all this stuff. And yet, really, truly, let's be honest, you know what to do. You know that you need to do these things with my database. We know to do these things with realtor relationships, like you know. And yet, I want to give you something a little bit different. I want you to tell. I want to say that mindset is a little bit BS. Like, have you ever went to a concert or worked all day and you're like, oh my gosh, it flew by? Or you listen to a speaker and it was like, oh my, that was an hour. And literally the time felt way different. That's called engagement. And the one thing that's happening is you're not overthinking. You know, you've probably already heard the stat. This a little over 42,000 originators left in our business that are doing over $6 million in business. That's it. Like seizing the opportunity. And yet, the one thing that's holding us back, are you ready? You're overthinking. Like, I think we overthink and we get into the spot and then we get to it and we're actually knowing we're supposed to do these things and yet we don't. And so today I want you to think about, am I overthinking? Am I overthinking all of these things and I'm not doing? Now, I think that there's a valid point, and I just had an AELO retreat and I had an amazing Josh Sigmund in, and I thought Josh killed it. But the one thing that he really made me think about is that the why. Like if you're making $250,000 and you set this new goal to 300 or 3.25, it's probably not enough to make really a true big difference. And to do these extra things to get to that spot, you probably wouldn't do it unless you had a why. Like, and I think whys change, and you think about, well, it's financial freedom. Someday I want to retire, and this is what I want. I don't want to be able to have to like change my lifestyle when I retire. So that could be the why. You could be, I have kids and I want them to be able to have a college education and come out debt free. That could be a why. You know, there was a point in time in my life where I was absolutely broke, and my why was survival. That could be your why. But like finding out that why, I think is crucial. Number two is not overthinking it, just doing the work. That's why calendars work so well. And I've like say it over and over and over and over again. How good is your calendar? Like I tell you this, if my calendar's not dialed and I'm not perfectly running that calendar, I'm no good. But if I got that calendar and I follow that calendar, I can kill it. And by the way, there's nothing better than killing it in the day and then going home and being there for your family. I promise you'll be the best you've ever been. But just like getting through the day, knowing you needed to do some things and then you didn't do things and you go home, it's kind of a crappy feeling. So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about my mindset. Where is it at? Are you distracted? Like, if I'm honest with you, I see squirrels too. I see a lot of squirrels. And I'm thinking the only way that I can stay focused and not see squirrels is A, I can't overthink it. And B, I got to follow the play. I got to follow my calendar and I got to do the work. So let's get into the theme word of the year. I keep getting asked over and over and over, what's your theme word? What's your theme word? And I want to give it to you. And it's actually not a word, it's a number. So I want you to write this down, 212. You know, there's something magically that happens to water at 212 versus 211 and versus 210. Like 211, the water will boil. And at 212, it will create steam. It will never create steam at 211 or 210. It has to get to 212. If you're thinking about that, like steam is momentum, like steam will move a train, but it would never move a train at 211. You know what's sad is that I've watched really great, talented loan officers that got out of the business or didn't have the years that they wanted with some of the regrets, and simply because they wouldn't get to 212. They overthought it. They spent more energy thinking about the uncontrollables instead of the controllables. And I don't know where you're at today, but evaluating that little spot right there, I know me, I want to be at 212. I want my team to have 212 in front of everyone. I want them to think, what are we going to do? And by the way, what word is inside STEAM? It's team. What's your team look like? What are you doing to be able to get to 212? Now, let me tell you something. We're talking about 1 degree, not a big, huge overhaul, just a little shift. Did you know that there's 4 major tournaments in golf? 4 major tournaments. And that 70% of the payoff goes to the top 3 golfers, and the rest get the 30%. Like 1 stroke difference, mostly since 1980 to present, for those scores. 1 stroke. Yet 70% of the payoff. How about the other one? The horse races. The horse races. There's the Triple Crown. 3 races. And yet, the top 3 get 400% of the payout. And there's milliseconds difference in timing between first, second, and third, and the rest. So if you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to make a shift, what would it be? You know, Thomas Edison said, and I wrote this down, most failures were not realized how close they really were before success would happen. And I feel like that may be the story for you, but that's definitely the story for a lot of originators. Like they were so close, they didn't realize how close they were, and yet they quit. Like, when do we buy stock? Do we buy stock at the highest, or do we buy it when it has the opportunity? Like, what's so cool about this market today is we are setting the groundwork of a great market in our future. Like the next 5 years has so much opportunity if we would just get ourselves to see it, quit overthinking it, and get to 212. You know, I'm going to give you 3 things, and maybe this will hit home for you. But I want you to write this down as you're listening to this, because I have very little time with you today, and I want to get through these 3 things. Number 1, I think it takes 3 ingredients to be a great originator today. Number 1, you have to be great at sales. You know, as a young kid, I grew up in my mom and dad's business. I started selling car stereos in 4th grade. So I got good at sales. at a young age because of my parents. Now there were some bumps in the road, and I got a little in trouble when I figured out what commissioned income looked like. But I got really good at sales. But my business never changed as an originator. I never got to that number and those goals that I wanted to accomplish until I accomplished the next two. So maybe you are good at sales. But number two is, are you a great business person? I'm seeing so many originators today not working on the business. They're great at sales, but they don't work on the business, and then nothing ever changes. Like, are you looking at your model and are you looking at your business of how I can change, how I can be different? Here's the thing. I think you need to be looking at your P&L and being able to figure out a way to save at least 10 basis points off your cost. To me, I'm already got things in the motion. It's the 212 for me. Where am I going to find it? I found it in some credit reports. I found it in the appraisal stuff. I found it in VOE costs. I'm like looking for everything. Maybe you're looking at marketing. Maybe you need to go back and go, did this work or didn't this work? What was my rate of return here? What was my rate of return on this? What was my rate of return on this relationship? I'm looking at each little thing. Like, do you understand your metrics? I think the most important metrics that you need to be looking at today as a loan officer and to be a great business person is these things: lead to app, app to approval, and approval to close. Now, look, I think many originators look at their conversion rate, which is lead to close. It's not good enough. We talk about if we're going to be great at business, we've got to QC everything. And if you've got a team, are you QCing it? Is the experience the way you want it? Because here's what I'll tell you, there's a big difference between a 5-diamond hotel and a 5-star hotel. The thing about a 5-diamond hotel is they know what your next move is and they're already ahead of it. And a 5-star does a good job, but they're very reactive. And what gives you that better experience is the 5-diamond. Like, what if your goal for 2025 and being able to get to 212 was this? I don't want a customer or a realtor ever to call in and ask for an update. Yes or no? Would that change your experience to your customer? Like, you were so forward in making sure they knew the update, they never had to call in. Would that make a difference? Would that be a great business person? Would you listen to the team, how they're engaging with your clients via email, text, or over the phone? Can I say, you're going to see some tweaks. You're going to see some things that you want to change. And by the way, you should listen to yourself. You know, I had a loan officer just lose a deal. And I'm like, I'm sorry that you lost that deal, but did you call the borrower back and find out why? Well, no. I want you to call that borrower back. And I want you to say, I'm so sorry. I understand you're going with someone else. What do I need to do to be better next time so I wouldn't lose someone else's business? And it took about a day. And guess what? That client responded. And it turned out it was nothing that he really did at all. Or did he? Because he chose a different product that he thought fit. And so the big lesson in that whole thing and that QCing of that process was, I don't think he digested enough to understand what the client's goals were in the beginning, to understand exactly what they wanted so they could provide the right product. Like, a lead is worth something. Do you know what your lead is worth? There's a cost to that lead. It's worth it. It might be as high as $250 to $300 a piece. Do you treat it like that? Do you need to go back and QC that experience? Because a great business person would do that. I mean, if you look at the 3 restaurants that are out there that are franchises, and you look at Subway, McDonald's, and Chick-fil-A, and you think of the experiences, and even though they're very small, subtle changes, I can tell you who makes the most and is only open 6 days a week. An average Chick-fil-A restaurant is a net of 350,000, and McDonald's is 125, and a Subway, $52,000 net. Is there a change in experience along that way? And even though they all sell a fast food type product, one majority only sells one and only concentrates on the experience. The drive-through is even different. They can walk through the drive-through. It's just not a little window. They have people in the drive-through being able to assist you and move you through the line to get your order quicker. Subtle changes makes big difference. 212. You know, the second speaker that talking about a great business person and changing it was Skylar. And I love Skylar because her thought process got fancy. She got freaked out. She talked about, I had to go out and go bigger and build this big, huge net. And she got licensed in 32 states. And she's like, wait a minute. If I can't win in my neighborhood, if I can't win in my office, if I can't win in my community, what am I thinking? And so she digests those three areas and put a plan together. She created block parties. She got set mailings, got to know the neighbors in the neighborhood, and all of a sudden was getting referrals and deals. Not brain surgery, just 212. Now she had to win in the office, and she was in an office building. And so on Fridays, she was delivering cookies. Not brain surgery, just 212. I think it was a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, and she already got a $700,000 deal. Winning in the office. And lastly, winning in the community. You see her husband's a football coach in middle school, and she was kind of bummed. Like, no one was showing up to watch these middle school and watch her kids play. 3 boys, heavily involved in football. So she created a tailgating and built up the crowd and created sponsorships. And not only did her middle school kids think this is the coolest thing ever, we're playing in front of a crowd. But she got the sponsors and this tailgating and parents coming up to us and says, this is the greatest thing. And she started to win in her community. So let's think about this for a second. Like, there's 3 ways to sell and be great at business. You can sell with your fingers. You can sell with your mouth. And you can sell with your feet. And I think your calendar needs to represent that throughout the day and throughout the week. You know, I've told a lot of people that I have a goal every single month to be in front of 400, be in front of you every single month, 400 face-to-face or Zoom a month. And I set this goal in 24, not knowing what an impact it would have on my life. Like, being a great business person, how many people do you need to be in front of so that you can win in these different areas? How many realtor relationships or VIPs? How many times do you need to be connected to your database? You set that number for 2025. Well, what I tell you is it'll change your life. Not only will you be a better business person, but it will change the result. Number 3. This is the final one. By the way, the hardest one. Being a great leader. You know, the speaker before me talked about influence and that opening line. Like, being a leader is working on your leadership skills. Who's a great leader? Who's a great coach? Probably the best is John Maxwell. I love his daily book, the daily devotional book. I love it. I love the tactics and the team and being a great leader. Like, if you want more people to follow you, if you want realtor relationships to follow you, if you want to be attractive so that you're getting referred more, you've got to work on your leadership and your influence. And here's what I know. I wasn't born with any one of those. All three of these skills can be learned, that you can work on it, but you got to put the effort in. Like, if you're going to work your database, I think you got to look for milestone moments and you've got to be connected and understanding it. Like, we're looking for diamonds and diapers. We're connecting to this database and we're asking basically two questions. Are you okay? And what's your real estate goals for the next 5 years? By the way, when you ask a customer in your database what your real estate goals are, and they tell you, they've literally cut the time in half. If they say a year, it's already down to 6 months. You start an app, it's already to 90 days. There's something that magically happens when we actually talk about it and we start to share the vision, that all of a sudden we start to accomplish our goals in real estate. You didn't say you'd buy that house. Like, it's happened. My wife and I, years ago, we went to Scottsdale. We looked at a house. We came back in contract. I remember flying back that night and she says, "What have we done?" I says, "I think we're crazy." It's how our brain works. 212. So as I wrap this up, and maybe Mitch has some questions for me, but I want you to think of this. In 2025, don't make it difficult. Don't make it complicated. Don't chase squirrels. Like, do I think 2025 is going to be different in 2024? Yeah, a little. Yeah. I think we're going to slowly see some maybe lower rates in the second quarter and third quarter. Yeah, I do. And I have some reasons of why I think that. But I want you to picture yourself out in the ocean. And I want you to picture these big waves coming in. Here's what I know about a surfer. Number one, they're never going to catch that big wave if they're not in the ocean. And number two, you're never going to catch that wave unless you can position your board to be in front. There's nothing more frustrating to a surfer than they miss the wave and they're behind, because there's nothing you can do to get in front of that wave. So you've got to position yourself to win in 2025. And it's real simple. You got to be in the ocean. And you got to be ahead of the wave. So I'll go back to where we originally said. Don't overthink this market. You got to get your brain trained on, I'm staying in activity. And number two, maybe you need to create a word or a number for you. Maybe it's, you can take mine. Maybe it is 212. Maybe it's something else. But I think all this talk about mindset, it can be overthought. And then we end up doing what? Nothing. So Mitch, I'm going to hand this back to you. You're a good friend. I love what you're doing. I love this, that you're giving back and promoting to all the originators across the country and great leaders. I was even thinking of you today, of two other people that I wanted to refer to you that I felt would be a great piece for your network. So make sure you reach back out to me. But Mitch, thanks for having me. I hope that I had a little short period here, but I hope it was impactful enough to we could think about how we're going to look at 2025 a little differently.
I love it, man. The 212, that's that's got me thinking the whole time. It's like, how did you come up with that, as your word or number of the year?
Well, I stole it out of a book. And a good friend of mine that we bounced a lot of ideas on was sharing each other back and forth. And he's like, "Do you have your word of the year?" Because last year's word was sticky. And like, how could I create sticky things? And so I created a private banking network that we bank and help mortgage professionals across the country be able to run their finances. And it was just something because we understand what an originator goes through. And then we created warehouse lines. And so we created a lot of sticky products based on that word. And then this word came, and I'm like, I don't have a word, guys. And I was like freaking out about it. And then we had this discussion, and then I was like, that's it. it's 212.
That's awesome. I love it. That's definitely a good one. I mean, like you said, it just takes the smallest. You always see that meme on, Facebook and LinkedIn. It's like the guy axing the dirt and he
Yeah.
gives up, and the diamonds are literally just on the other side. He
Right.
gave up just too soon.
Too soon.
You give
Thanks
up
for
too
having me,
soon.
Mitch. I appreciate you.